Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Carlos Clanton, and I want to welcome you all to my latest edition of Live with Carlos Clanton. I'm so excited about the guest that I have tonight. Not only is she a great leader, she is a great physician, but she is a good friend, and she is a friend to all of our students, our parents, and all of our citizens here in the city of Norfolk. And I'm going to hop right in. We've got none other than Dr. Noelle Gabriel, who is the chair of the Norfolk City School Board, and I'm going to add her in right now. Welcome, Dr. Gabriel.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Carlos. It's wonderful to be on.
Glad to have you here. So, Dr. Gabriel, if you don't mind, tell the people a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from?
Well, I'm born and raised here in Norfolk. I went to Norfolk Public Schools. I'm starting at Little Creek Elementary. I then went to Azalea Gardens Middle School, and then we moved to take care of my grandmother, and I ended up going to Granby High School. So I'm a Comet. I graduated in 1998, and I wanted to pursue a career in medicine. My brother, unfortunately, had a terrible accident, and he ended up staying at King's Daughters for quite some time. And that's when I was first introduced to medicine. So then I hopped on over to Old Dominion University and then got my medical degree from Eastern Virginia Medical School. And the running joke is when I go to civic leagues is I did change zip codes when I got married to my husband and we moved. So yeah, that's my background. I'm a pediatrician with the Children's Hospital of King's Daughters. I've done about 10 years in the emergency department with Children's Hospital of King's Daughters. And I recently joined a practice, Tidewater Children's Associates, and I primarily work out of the Suffolk office. So I work in the emergency room, usually during the weekends, and I'm at Suffolk during the week.
Oh, wow. Now, won't hold that part about you being a comet. For those who don't know,
gold. You're wearing blue and gold.
Yes, I am. I'm actually wearing your school colors tonight, right? For those who don't know, Dr. Gabriel and myself have known each other since high school. We didn't go to the same high school, but we were a part of the Tidewater Debate League, and different sides of the city, different schools. But she tells a story in respect of a time when we had to come together and it didn't matter. We were Norfolk. Right?
That's right. That's absolutely right. We wanted to win for Norfolk, and we sure did.
Definitely. So how and why did you get involved in the school board?
Well, Carlos, that's a great question. I remember when I was in the emergency department, a couple of my colleagues said, why are you choosing Norfolk to move to? Why don't you move to one of the other cities? And the question really came down about the school system. And I said to them, well, you must not know, I went to Norfolk Public Schools and I got a fantastic education. I had wonderful teachers. I had a wonderful experience. And truly, I feel that it has made me a better physician because going to Norfolk Public Schools, we had a diverse group of students, diverse group of staff, and our patient population is very diverse. And so long story short, when my husband and I were having a conversation about where we were going to move, we said, you know what, we work in Norfolk, my parents are in Norfolk, our church is in Norfolk, and so Norfolk is going to be home to us. And if we're concerned about the school division, then we need to participate in the process. And so that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to, I'll put my letter in for submission to be appointed to the school board. I was actually on our civic league and we got a letter about appointments to the school board. I had never done any position like that before. And fast forward 8 years later, here we are. But it's about service, and it's about letting people know that there are wonderful things within our public school system, and it's really a gem within the city.
Great, definitely. And we're glad to have you a part of the school board. You were here before I got here, but when I was working with Norfolk Public Schools, you were there, and it was great to see a friendly face on the board. So for those who are joining in tonight, I want to make sure that I share some information with you here. We definitely want you to be a part of this conversation. It's not every time that you get the chair and the vice chair of the school board in an environment of this. I mean, as you all know, this whole platform is about raising the consciousness of folks to pay attention to what's going on in their school division. And so a lot of things are happening, and you've seen a lot of reports and things that are there. So I just want you to know how you can participate. If you are watching on Facebook, if you are, here we go. So if you want to share comments or questions, we're going to definitely take those on the second half, but definitely put them in there. If you're on Facebook, make sure that you're not on my personal page, but you're on Carlos Clanton for MPS, and you leave your comments there. That's how I can see them. If you're on my personal page, they won't show up. But if you're on Periscope or Twitter, you can go to CJ Clanton for NPS and leave them in the comment section there as well as you can share that information on YouTube Live. You can go to the YouTube Live page and you can share the information there, and add your comments and be a part of the conversation. One of the other things also is that participate in a poll. I'm going to put this information up now. That sounds like V-Man in the back there. As everybody knows, Dr. Gabriel is a doctor on the school board. She is super mom. I get to interact with her every day on phone, and she's balancing all these different things here, but she truly cares about the division. You might as well just bring them on in there. Hey, V-Man, how you doing? The youngest of the crew. But we want you to participate in a poll. If you are on your if you're at your computer, you can go to pollev.com / and you see the information there, Carlos Clanton. I'll leave this up for you all, and you can participate in the poll, or you can text code to 37607, and you can participate in the poll as well by talking like yes, no, or undecided. So the question is, and the question that we're looking at for today is one that's kind of out there, and it's asking: should the Norfolk Public School Board do you believe the Norfolk School Board should rename schools that are named after Confederate leaders? And so you've got an opportunity to go ahead and participate in that poll and to share that information and to share your thoughts. Again, do you believe the Norfolk School Board should rename schools that are named after Confederate leaders? And so we're not making decisions today, but we definitely want to hear what you have to say and hear your comments. And we'll definitely talk about some issues when we talk about racism, we talk about equity and equality within our schools and so forth. So we definitely will touch those things there. And so I'm glad that Dr. Gabriel is here, and let's just see on. I see Sharice Newsom, the president of our PTA. Sharice, it's really good to have you join with us. Our colleague in the Norfolk City School Board, Dr. Lauren, I'm gonna call her doctor, but Lauren Campson is also here with us participating. So please get out there and share the information. But we've got a poll there for you. So here we go. So let's get right into this thing. So what is the role of a school board member? And I have this stated up here, and it's a statement. It says, school board members are locally elected public officials entrusted with governing the community's public schools. As champions for a community, the role of the school board is to ensure that the school district is responsive to the values, beliefs, and priorities of their communities. So do you believe that, Dr. Gabriel?
Absolutely. I think that our children are our most valuable asset, and they are our legacy. If we invest in children, then we are not only investing in our future, but we are leaving our future in better hands. And so I see my role as a school board member, and more importantly, as the chair, as extremely important and valuable. Even as a pediatrician, our children are they can be very influenced, and if we can provide them a solid education, To me, that is probably one of the best tools that we can give them in order to be successful when they become adults and graduate and take on whatever dreams or aspirations they have. But the school system is where those foundations are then carried over from the household to the schoolhouse and then later on in life. And so I definitely believe in that statement.
Definitely appreciate it. So what would you say are some of your accomplishments? So you're serving as the board chair. You've been on the board for how many years now?
8 years.
8 years, and your constituents just elected you back for another 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I thank each and every one of them. Every vote mattered, whether it was absentee or in person, and that was a very, very wild and crazy re-election. But I'm very grateful and blessed to be serving for 4 more years. Accomplishments. I'm very proud. We have built 5 new schools within the time that I've been on the board. So I'm very proud about that. We've been able to give teachers raises every year consecutively. And for the past 2 years, we made a commitment to increasing not only just their base salary with a raise, but also to address step increases. And that's very important to teachers. We have initiated what we call the academic accountability plan. And that was basically a plan in place that put some standards and some benchmarks to see where the entire division had goals in order to obtain. And that's both in the areas of special education, students who are low income, English language learners. And really what that plan allows us to do is to set ourselves on a path for full accreditation of the entire school division, and then to be a high performing division, because just basic accreditation means that you're meeting the standard. And, we don't want to just meet the standard. We want to blow it out of the water. Exactly. So, and we want every child to be able to do that. And we know that they can. And so the accountability plan gets right at that. And it looks at more than just academics. It looks at discipline in schools. It looks at the arts. It looks at music. It looks at climate within a building. Are teachers satisfied? Are parents satisfied? And so really it is a wonderful blueprint that allows us to target and track our progress. And that goes to a big word, and that is accountability. How are we being accountable, not only to our students, but our families and to our staff? So I'm very proud about that. We created the Safe Schools Task Force. I can't receive credit for that. That was all the brainchild of Ms. Campson and Ms. Martin. They really felt it was very important that we bring together some experts in the community to talk about safety in our schools. And safety is not just safety as in, unfortunately, we live in the time where we've had some school shootings and that, but it's also about bullying and mental health within school. So we created the Safe Schools Task Force. And then recently, as everybody knows, we went through a superintendent search, and we brought on Dr. Sharon Birdsong, who is, 29 years within the school division and a former principal of the year, national principal of the year. And so I'm very proud of the work that we've done, both academically, for the arts, for our staff, for facility and maintenance. But you and I both know there is so much left to be done. And that's what the next 4 years are all about.
Great. So for those who are joining us, again, we want you to share your questions and your comments. I'm actually going to take one comment we're going to place in here that came up, because I think everybody wants to know this secret sauce. But Sharice Newsom says, how do you balance working, public service, and motherhood? Tell us the secret.
Well, my most important job is being a mom. And as you shared, I am a mom of 4, but I have a very supportive family. I have a wonderful husband. I lost my mom, believe it or not, right before I came on the school board. And she was an educator with Norfolk Public Schools. She taught at the former Lafayette Winona Middle School and Granby High School. But it was very important to her. With us growing up, we did not have a whole lot of means. My dad was a bus driver for TRT. It was education, education, education. And so my dad said, this is something that you need to continue in your mom's legacy, so I will help you. So I have a very supportive family. My work family is very supportive. My fellow pediatricians, they know how important education is for children. And so I have to rely on them and God. I'm a firm believer that God gives you what you can handle. And so for whatever reason, this is the duty that I have before me, and I accept it, and I'm very proud to do it. But it's a lot of work. I work during the day and night, so every hour is accounted for.
Like, I'm trying to figure out when you get sleep, honestly. Because Noelle, you have how many children?
I have 4.
4.
I have 4. And at any time, with the exception of, this recent pandemic, I would have more than that in my house, because between the cousins and friends and things like that, yes. So 4 children, and I love it. It's the most wonderful thing in the world, motherhood. I definitely have to say that.
Well, definitely. Well, Cerise, we appreciate that question there. And if anyone else has any questions that you'd like to ask while we're here today, definitely share them with us. You can do them directly at Carlos Clanton for NPS. You can do them on Periscope, which is Twitter's live version, CJ Clanton for NPS, or YouTube Live with Carlos Clanton. Again, for those who are probably joining us, we have Dr. Noelle Gabriel, who is the school board chair and the Superward 6 member of the Norfolk City School Board. She's completing her, come June 30th, will complete her 8 years on the board, and was recently just elected to an additional 4 years to serve on our board. And for the last 2 years, have served as the chair, and I think prior was that maybe 2 or 3 years you served as the vice chair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a wealth of information and knowledge and experience, but you're a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But so how does the whole medicine piece and everything kind of tie into why you would want to serve on the school board? Is it something else? Is it your kids? I mean, what?
Well, I guess kids is the common thread, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mom, pediatrician, school board, it's all about children. It really is all about the children. And as I said before, it's about what can we do as the adults in order to make this world and leave this world a better place for them, whether that be through health, through education. And so I strongly believe that having a perspective of a healthcare provider, especially a pediatrician, on the school board is very important and valuable, especially as we are better understanding the mental health repercussions of some of the trauma that our students are going through. And, trauma can come in many different forms, but I can definitely speak with expertise on mental health services, what's needed for students, how children internalize things, how can that have a lasting effect, how that kind of rewires their brain, whether that be from ADHD to learning disabilities to even just making sure that their well checks are being covered. But it's a wonderful blend of bringing 2 worlds together that help to, again, advance what is necessary in order for students to have the best possible learning environment. Mm-hmm. Education policies and healthcare policies can go hand in hand. And that really came to fruition when we were fighting to have a nurse in every school. Not everybody understood the type of critical patients that Norfolk Public Schools had. We have children with G-tubes, trachs, vents, different things like that within our building. And if you don't have a RN in that building in order to administer meds, take care of them, you could be dealing with some serious repercussions. And I'm very proud of our school division, even when the state backed off paying for that critical employee within our division, we stepped up and said, you know what, every school needs to have a school nurse, whether the child is having an asthma attack or a food allergy. It's something critical. It goes to health and safety.
Definitely. Well, I'm glad to have you there, because that's not an expertise that I have, but it's always good. I always say that our school board, everybody comes with something to the table. With that level of experience. And that's what makes a board really function, because everybody doesn't have to be the master of everything in knowledge, right. But know your space there and being able to collaborate and work together So I want to elaborate a little bit more. You talked about the Safe and Secure Schools Task Force, and as well as the accountability plan. So is the accountability plan the strategic plan for the district? What does that look like?
So, in my understanding, and the accountability plan would be a sub segment of a grander strategic plan, and that is something that Dr. Birdsong envisions in putting a team together in order to create the division strategic plan. You know, what do we aspire to be in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years? What are our long-term goals? And that looks at both vision, mission, facilities, academics, all of that. The accountability plan really is very comprehensive. It's like, I guess you could call it like a mini strategic plan. But it really allowed us to set some benchmarks in place. And I will tell you that in the midst of COVID-19, with SOLs being canceled and not knowing what the school year is going to look like for September, we're going to have to go back and look at that again, because the benchmarks that we set, we know we don't have data points from this year as with regards to the SOLs. There are other data points that we can put into place, but again, we're going to have to go back and reevaluate that.
Definitely. Again, we welcome anybody who is joining us. Please like, share, have others to join in the conversation. So this past school year was disrupted by this whole COVID-19. We finally have graduated our seniors, and they went in great style. It wasn't what we were used to. We went to, I think, Chrysler Hall when we were in high school, but they would normally be at Ted Constant Center. But our district went above and beyond this year to really make that special. You want to kind of talk about some of the things that we did to celebrate our seniors?
Absolutely. Well, our superintendent, Dr. Birdsong, has a senior herself. And so she really was able to understand what some of the families and some of the students were going through. She had true empathy with them. And so she really wanted to make the event very memorable and special for them. And so what she put together was a virtual graduation where the valedictorian salutatorian would be delivering speeches, as well as a couple of other individuals within their school. They allow them to put special pages on like YouTube to send each other shout outs for the school. And then each individual school did a special private ceremony with social distancing measures and safety in place. Students were able to receive their cap and gown. They got professional photos done. And then they were encouraged to go and take some pictures around the city. And I actually saw several of them around. I saw a couple at Botanical Gardens, a couple at Chrysler. It was we made the best of a situation. I call it making lemonade out of lemons. And we're really proud of our seniors. I mean, they went through quite a lot, and this is going to be a learning experience for them. And I know that many of them and their families were very concerned about not being able to physically walk across the stage, but they are going to have other great accomplishments in the future.
Great things there. So we've had the whole COVID-19. It disrupted everything for everybody. But as a physician, as a mother, we hear all the things on the news. We know the district is currently, the superintendent's putting a plan together that'll be presented to the board. We know that the governor has made an announcement about these various phases. And then, so there's a lot of unknown and uncertainty. So how do you feel about the potential effect that COVID-19 could have on us this fall, going back to school? And what can parents do now in preparation for the coming school year to keep their young scholars safe?
That's a great question, Carlos. And I just want to say to all the families that are tuning in that I'm right in there with you. I have a rising 6th grader, a rising 5th grader, a rising 1st grader, and one who hasn't even entered in Norfolk Public Schools. And so I'm also dealing with daycare and school options. Let's just take a moment and understand how serious this virus is. While it has not had an impact a serious impact on the health of children. It has had a tremendous impact on our elderly population, and especially those with what we call comorbidities. So those individuals with asthma or uncontrolled diabetes or heart disease. And so while there's evidence that is coming out about, children not necessarily being affected, what we do know is that if children are affected, they can pass it on to others. And so our school division right now is being as cautious as they possibly can with trying to understand all vantage points. So not just the vantage points from family members, but also the vantage points from and the viewpoints from our staff, and how they feel about coming into an environment. And so again, health and safety is important. Mental health is important. I've heard from a lot of my fellow colleagues that really feel that, children in school is very important. It's important for their stability, for routine and all that. And I don't disagree with them. But this puzzle is so complicated when it comes to our school division. I really have to give a lot of credit to our superintendents, because the decisions that they have on their shoulders at this time is incredible. We are looking at 3 different options, as Dr. Birdsong said. Is this going to be a completely virtual option? Is this going to be a blended learning where you have virtual and some face-to-face time? Or is this truly just going to be exclusively face-to-face? I don't see us being all face-to-face, and that's just my personal opinion with what I'm seeing right now. As you know, there are cases that are going up in a variety of states. But I do think what parents can do right now is to just plan ahead as best as they can. Get an A, a B, and a C option lined up for daycare. Get your children their well visits. Make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Make sure that they have their asthma medication. Make sure that you stock up on the supplies that you need. Start practicing things like hand washing at your house. When my kids come home, they leave their shoes out the door. They come in, they know book bags off, straight to the bathroom, go wash your hands. Things like that parents can do to reinforce good hygiene. And that's not just for COVID, but that's for flu, that's for strep, that's for all kinds of viruses that children come in, hand, foot, and mouth. So all of that is very important, but we want to make sure that we're also communicating with our parents. So parents can also make sure that they have the right phone number with Norfolk Public Schools, that they stay in tune, whether that be through Facebook or email, to make sure that they're receiving the information.
Good thing. Well, again, for anyone who's joining us, welcome. Dr. Gabriel is with us, and she just gave us some information in regards to how and what parents could potentially do to prepare for this coming fall as we begin to look at the continuation of this COVID-19. I mean, I remind people every day, I'd say we kind of knew that we were going to have a kind of a slow dip over the summer. That's what typically happens with the flu and cold season. But we're going to approach that again in the fall. And I know that me personally, even as a member of this board, I'm very committed to doing what's in the best interest of our students and our staff members to ensure that they're safe as they attend school, as I know all of you all are who serve me there. So I want to get to another topic here, and you see that we have this participate in the poll. You can do that from your website, or you can text this here. And the question that we're asking is, do you believe that the Norfolk School Board should change the names of schools that are named after Confederate leaders? That was in the pilot today. And several of our news stations have also aired some stories regarding that. As a matter of fact, I did a little research in about 2017. Our former reporter that covered the Norfolk School Board had done a story as well, that we had 3 schools that were still in Norfolk that were named after Confederate leaders. One of those being my alma mater, Maury High School. The other one being Ruffner Middle School, Ruffner Academy. And the third being my former elementary school as well, W.H. Taylor Elementary School. So when you kind of look at that, what steps has the board taken to address racism and equity? Because that is something that's very much on the minds and on the radar of individuals, not even just in our country, but around the world. We see these protests that are going on. I participated in one about 2 weeks ago. Did maintain my social distancing and had my mask and things on, and I'll be participating in another one with my fraternity and other members across the Commonwealth of Virginia in Richmond this Saturday. But what things from a public school perspective, particularly for Norfolk, one that Norfolk has a history, and we even look at the civil rights movement and look at desegregation within public schools. But what are some of the things that the steps that this board has taken to address racism and equity in our public school district? And what could the community potentially anticipate for future actions from this board?
That's a wonderful question, Carlos. And let me just start taking it, going back to the accountability plan first. When the accountability plan looks at achievement gaps, we specifically are looking at the different subgroups of students. So we look at African American males, we look at English language learners. We specifically look at it so that we are tracking their progress. We are looking to identify things and interventions that we can put in place in order to make them succeed. And so from an academic standpoint, that is one thing that we have definitely focused our attention on. And I know that when Dr. Birdsong, when she discussed the accountability plan, when she looks at data, she understands that that is a clear directive from the board, that we are interested in making sure that these groups are making progress and interventions are being done. So that's from an academic perspective. From a policy perspective, two policies come to mind. The board has adopted an equity policy. That equity policy looks at allowing an equity report to be developed, but we also have a family engagement policy. As a part of that family engagement policy, we're trying to make sure that we deliver news and information to our families, both in a language that they can understand, whether that be Spanish, English, or whatever the language is, but that we're trying to reach more families so that we get better engagement. More recently, at our last school board meeting, I think that our school board made some very landmark votes. And the first one was Dr. Birdsong's recommendation of adopting Juneteenth as a holiday within Norfolk Public Schools, which unanimously passed. Very proud to be able to do that. You brought forth the resolution from the Virginia School Board Association that addresses racism and equity. Every line in that resolution echoes the sentiments that we all have to really embody in order to make every student and family feel welcomed, know that we believe in them, know that we want them to succeed, and know that we are actively looking at what's going to make them feel at home in Norfolk Public Schools. I mean, even today, one of my colleagues at work said, Noelle, it wasn't until I went to an HBCU that I felt like I actually owned where I was going to school. Mm-hmm. And I never thought about that. I just never thought about that. But we want all of our students to feel welcome and safe. And then finally, we are addressing this issue of our school names. And, it's something that we have to take this issue head on, and outline a process for what this discussion is going to look like, what actions are going to take place as a board, not just me by myself, not you by yourself, but as a board collectively. This is what has been laid before us. Our nation is grappling with these conversations right now. There are things that that the federal government can do, the state government can do, and there are things that we can do. And this is one of them. And so I really do look forward to that conversation that we're going to be having.
Definitely. Very good points there. And again, reminding individuals that if you're just joining, these are the three schools that are in question. And I don't think that it stops there. It's more than just buildings. And I think that the resolution that we passed talked about that. It talked about the environment. It talked about the culture. It talked about even looking at policies that we may potentially have within the district. We had State Delegate Jay Jones, who was on with me 2 weeks ago, and he talked about some of the language that's embedded the Constitution and state laws and regulations that still go all the way back to trying to continue the continuation of a divide between people. And so I appreciate and I value and I know how deeply committed you are for all of our children, regardless of their race, regardless of what section of the city that they come from. And I'll be perfectly honest, it frustrates me as a individual who, and for those who don't know, I grew up in Park Place and Lambert's Point, so I grew up technically on the west side of the city of Norfolk, and for many years. I look back now, but essentially my mother was a single parent. She had 3 kids. We stayed in a 2-bedroom duplex. But because of where I was located in this city, I had the opportunity to go to Larchmont Elementary School. And then because we moved across the street and around the corner, that was where the dividing line was. I ended up going to W.H. Taylor Elementary School. I went to Blair Middle School, and then I went to Morey High School. And I wouldn't take back my experience at all, because it's what I think I know what we're trying to do for every child in this city. And that's to give them the exposure of the diversity. That's what public schools offer every child. That's an experience outside of what they have in their normal communities, to prepare them for the world. I look forward to it. I know that we're committed to ensuring that we're not only trained, that we're trained to know what to look for. I know that we started some implicit bias training. It's difficult when you're in a policy position because you have what you've already formed. Your perceptions, what you perceive, your experiences shape you. And something that always still resonates with me more here today, and that's that hate isn't something that people are born with. It's something that's taught, and it's brought through experience. And so I know that we're deeply committed, along with our administration, to ensure that all of our children feel that they're in an environment that they can learn and that they can be around others that are going to encourage them and support them. So final words or comments or anything that you'd like to offer the folks this evening?
Well, I really appreciate coming on tonight, Carlos. You have been a tremendous partner with me in this journey to make sure that our students have everything that they need in order to be successful. I really value the work that you have done, the voice that you have brought to the board. I appreciate all of your expertise, whether that be through the parliamentary procedure or just the candid community conversations that we have had together. The advocacy that we do both at the state level, whether that be through our governor, through our delegates, through our state senators. It's truly a team effort. And when we say we are in this together, we are in this together. And I would say to all those that are watching right now, our commitment is very strong. We care deeply about the students. We care deeply about the staff members. The conversations and the decisions that we have before us are so incredibly complex. We are weighing all of the different scenarios, and we know that to each and every one of you that our decisions have a direct impact on what you all are doing, and we are very thoughtful about that. But just know that that the decisions that we make, we have to put our students first, our scholars first. They are the priority. We need to do everything we can in order to make them successful. And so that being said, again, honored to be here for the next 4 years, honored to be working with such a great group of individuals who are incredibly talented, incredibly caring. I'm looking forward to the change and the progress that we are going to have these next 4 years. And we're a great team, and we're going to come out of this pandemic so much stronger than we ever imagined that we could be.
I appreciate that. And so, Noelle, hang around. We're not totally done. I actually want, in some of my closing comments here, I want to reread the resolution that the board passed last night. I think it's important. This will also be posted. I know that the school division has posted this, so this will be posted on my website and as well as on my social media. But we unanimously approve this, but I think that it's important for anyone who's watching this to be able to hear what we're committed to. And so this is the Norfolk City School Board Anti-Racism Resolution. Whereas members of the Norfolk City School Board, as well as Norfolk Public Schools staff, are saddened and outraged by recent events that demonstrate the prejudice and injustices that persist in our country. Whereas racism and hate have no place in our schools or our society, and we must protect the constitutional rights of every person who lives, works, and learns in our community. Whereas we cannot be silent. We urgently must act to stop the racial injustices that harm the anguishes of Black people, who are our family, our friends, neighbors, students, staff members, and fellow Americans. Whereas we must listen. Those who have endured discrimination and intolerance deserve to be heard. They shared their stories and truth about their experiences and feelings, and must seek with great empathy to understand their challenges and their pain. Whereas we must learn. It is time to engage our community in meaningful and honest conversation about racial inequality, to build alliances that with those committed to justice for all, and to work together to support our shared conviction that racism must end. Whereas we must lead, each of us individually and collectively. It is responsible for creating and nurturing an anti-racist learning environment where every child is respected and valued, who they are, regardless of their skin color. And we must actively acknowledge, address, and prevent racial biases that occur as a result of the vision, policies, practices, and actions. And whereas we must do better. Our division can be and will be a sanctuary of safety in our community and a beacon of light for the world. We must build and strengthen truth with those we serve, and we must model the acceptance of all. Therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Norfolk City School Board, stand in steadfast in our commitment to foster an inclusive educational environment where every student, teacher, support professional, parent, community member is treated with dignity and respect, as well as our commitment to continue fighting for racial justice and human and civil rights for all. And this was approved unanimously by the members of the Norfolk City School Board. Noelle, I appreciate you. I value your leadership as our board chair and as a member, and participating. And as we continue to evolve, and as we continue to move forward throughout this school year, I think that people will see that there is a new level of commitment, not just about passing policies, but ensuring that those policies and the necessary regulations are put into action. And I believe that this is just a start of community conversation, of something, there's a movement. And for those who many know, I'm a former national president with the Civil Rights Organization, leading young professionals around this country. And I've worked and stood shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Reverend Al Sharpton and Mark Morial and John Lewis. And I have a great passion for ensuring that we have change. And we see that. We are on the cusp of change in our local communities, and just every facet. And this generation is going to be able to be a part of that. And I'm glad to be here to be a part of that, not just for myself, but for all of our kids, that they can have a better world and a better place to live in. So again, for everyone who is joining us, we thank you. A little bit shorter here tonight. Well, you know, I had like 9 people with me last time, but I definitely appreciate Dr. Gabriel being able to take out some time there. The poll is still open, and I'm going to ensure, yep, it's still open there. I'm going to ensure it's going to stay open after we finish here. I'll share the results of that tomorrow on my Facebook page, but I encourage you, if you haven't done so already, follow me. Stay engaged, share your thoughts with me, your opinions. I definitely look forward to it. I value that. You can follow me on Facebook Live at Carlos Clanton for NPS. You can go to my YouTube live channel and watch this. So if you're not on any of those other social, follow me on Twitter as well as on Instagram. But as we continue to move forward, we're looking for change. We're looking for what's in the best interest of all of our students. And I appreciate you and value my colleagues on the board. We may not always agree, but I respect them. And I respect the job that we have to do each and every day. So Dr. Gabriel, I appreciate you. And for everybody else, I'm just going to double check, make sure we didn't have any last minute comments. Great. So with that, everybody, I want you to have a great night. Have a great evening. And don't forget, I can't forget this. I appreciate Governor Northam and the General Assembly, both the Senate and the House, for voting to make Juneteenth an official state holiday. And so this sends a message to so many individuals of Black and African-American descent to acknowledge the sacrifices that many of them are doing and so have done in our history. So look at my website, look at my Facebook page. There'll be information about various things that are going on in our area and around the Commonwealth. And I encourage everyone to just take time to sit back, to think, to reflect, and acknowledge what you can do to support moving this movement forward. So with that, thank you, everybody. Y'all have a great one, and we're out of here.